sure.
Oh, yeah.
Just making sure. All right. And give me 2 seconds here. I'm so behind right now. And we'll go there. The lovely and talented Christy Bergeron, Media Fox, Cabasa Nova, who we know and love from San Francisco. Spookles the Awesome Cat. The lovely and talented... Spookles. You're lovely and talented, too. The Ronald Penton is here. Christopher Carlman, welcome to Spaced Out Radio's chat room. Sam Faz, good to see you. JR, thanks for coming on in. And Sherry Knight, looking lovely tonight. And Kevin from Moonlit, good to see you. And the Ronald Penton here, everyone. Simon, thank you so much for that super chat. Really do appreciate that. We are 29 seconds away from blowing the top off this place tonight. And Jim Goodall is our guest here. We really do appreciate Jim coming on in. Gorgeous Helena, good to see you. Andrew, thank you so much for that super chat. Really do appreciate that. And we got 10 seconds. The super chat is a great way to support what we do on the show each and every night. Kevin Barry, Mark Salzman, Anthony Goss, aliens visit here, where, who? Here we go. From the mountains of central British Columbia to you listening around the world, this, my friends, is Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. We welcome you to tonight's show on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on TalkStream Live, Revolution Radio, and KPNL. All of our archives are free by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. You can follow us on Twitter @Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram, Spaced Out Radio Show. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Tonight's show is brought to you by Chive Charities. Help make the world 10% happier by visiting Chive Charities today. You can find them on our website. When it comes to legendary, there are very few in the UFO world who actually can use that title and use it wisely. James Goodall is a good friend of this show and one of those incredible legends that we get the privilege to hear from tonight. His true passion has always been airplanes, and the spookier the better. He's been into aircraft and things that go bump or at least fast in the night as far back as he can remember. He's been honored to have met some of the world's top aviation designers, pilots, maintenance guys, and support staff for the likes of Lockheed Martin, Northrop Grumman, Boeing, and a few old aviation industries that merged and are no longer here. But you can find any of his books by going to any major bookstore across North America and the world. And this guy also earns the title as the first civilian ever to photograph the F-117 stealth fighter. Mr. Goodall, I bow to you. It's always a pleasure to have you here, my friend. How are you?
Well, it's a delight to join you. I enjoy. I'm sorry I couldn't make it last time, but I always enjoy my time on Spaced Out Radio. So, and if I look like I'm blushing, I am, because Dave is just saying too many nice things about me.
Well, you know what? Honestly, though, I'm not even trying to kiss your butt here, but you deserve it. I mean, you have a resume among resumes for authors. You've talked to some of the most secretive people in the United States. You've met with people whom the public will never, ever know what they know. I mean, when you look back and catalog everything that you have experienced over the years, my friend, I mean, you're living a life of an aviation legend.
Well, it's a passion of mine. It's always been ever since I was a little boy. And all my wives had said, "Well, you're obsessed with this stuff." And I said, "Well, it's either that or I'll become a drunk or I'll go chase women." sometimes it's easier to chase women than it is chase spooky airplanes, but I'm limited to the spooky airplanes part.
Well, for you, I know your story, and you've said it a few times. I mean, that first time way back when you saw all of those bombers flying in formation, about 25 of them that were flying in formation along the California coast, that really resonated with you, that was what you wanted to do. You are a veteran of the United States Air Force. Thank you so much for your service and time that you did while in service, including the Gulf War of 1991. I mean, for you, when you look back on your career, whether it was when you were serving or whether as a civilian where you got up close and personal with the SR-71 and other black and stealth projects, what is your biggest accomplishment, you think, in this field?
Well, first of all, I never in my wildest dreams when I was younger did I ever think, or did I even want to be a published author. I'm working on book number 29 right now, but I don't know, it's sort of like pushing a small pebble down a steep incline, in a snowy part of the mountains, and pretty soon you have a bigger thing rolling down, and next thing you know, you have an avalanche. And that's pretty much how my aviation background began. I mean, I'm not even sure how I got where I'm at with having people like Ben Rich as my friend. I spent 2.5 hours with Jeff Babbion on the 3rd of June of this year at the Skunk Works, where I did a book signing on my 75 years of the Lockheed Skunk Works. And then I got a tour of the X-59, which is a project made for being built for NASA. It is a technology demonstrator to be able to design an airplane that flies high, but primarily flies supersonic without a shockwave hitting the ground, and that's what they're going to be experimenting. It's a unique looking airplane. It doesn't have a cockpit window, and the pilot looks through a high definition TV screen in front of him. But plus, you can also look below. And I got a chance to stand up next to it with Jeff and with the your head of media, plus the program manager, and then from there we went over to the U-2 overhaul facility. That was a kick. I mean, I've always liked the U-2. In addition to me seeing my first Blackbird on March 10th, 1964, about the same. This is when I was at Edwards. About the same time, I had a chance to see 3 U-2s fly right over me on the way to North Base, and it was just I heard a roar, and I look and I see these slate gray gliders heading towards me. I knew what a U-2 was, but it had only been 4 years since Powers was shot down over the Soviet Union, and that was sort of the beginning of my passion for all things Lockheed, all things Skunk Works. So, and I didn't think it would end up like this. I mean, I hated, with a capital H, I hated term papers in school, both in junior high school, and when I went to the university. So, the fact that I'm a published author now with working on book 29, that by itself just surprises the heck out of me.
I got to ask you about the U-2 because we're going to get into a lot of it tonight with you. The plane is over 60 years old. Why are they still flying it with today's technology?
The old saying goes, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. The U-2 was, when it was first designed by Kelly Johnson, he wanted a high-altitude reconnaissance aircraft with a limited life expectancy, 2 years, 3 years maybe. So he made the airframe very, very light and decided not to have standard landing gear. They were going to have bicycle-type landing gear, a big wheel up front, small one in the back, and then outriggers that fall off once you take off. And it was only supposed to survive like 5 years until something better came along. And the design proved to be so solid that 60 years later, the advanced version of the U-2, then the first U-2s were U-2A through G, and that was the 80-foot wingspan, J-75 powered. Initially, it was a J-57 powered, but J-75 powered. And then they went to the General Electric. I think it's the F-118 engine, same engine that's used in the B-2 stealth bomber. And it's just the Global Hawk doesn't have the electrical generating capability of the U-2. It doesn't have the carrying capability of the U-2 to altitude. The U-2 is an airplane that, when you looked at the specifications, you sort of laughed. This airplane's going to be around 60 years from now. You got to be kidding me. Well, it's a design that is timeless. You look at the F-104 Starfighter, another Kelly Johnson Skunk Works airplane. That airplane, it hasn't been operational for decades, but when you look at it, you go, wow, that is a cool looking airplane, and I bet it's fast. And it's that mentality that brought you the U-2, that brought you Lockheed to the table with the Blackbird as a replacement to the U-2. Now, the Blackbirds were retired. The very last one flew in October 99. So it's been 22 years, but the U-2 is still flying.
That amazes me.
And it's fairly inexpensive to operate when you consider how much a Blackbird, an SR-71 or an A-12 Blackbird would cost. You're looking at $250,000 a flight hour for the Blackbird. And they were saying, well, it's expensive. It costs us X number of dollars every time we turn the thing on. When reality, and I don't know how their accounting practices work, but in reality, you're only dealing with expendables and fuel, because the day the airplane was delivered, it was paid for. The GIs, whether they're an E1 Airman Basic or an E9 Chief Master Sergeant, they're going to be paid 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, whether they work on the airplane or whether they go out and pick up rocks on the flight line. So it's most of the Skunk Works decisions were really earth-shattering. The F-117, it's the first and only faceted airplane to fly. It actually flies better faceted than it does if it had a smooth contour. And Ben Rich could never publicize it, but he said the F-117 is one of the best flying airplanes that he's ever had the pleasure of working on and designing. It loved to take off perfectly. It flew well. Of course, it's all fly-by-wire. And the old joke goes, the F-117 is unstable in every single regime except when it's parked. And but he took an idea to take calculations and mathematical equations from the Russians. They were published in a non-classified piece, and it showed how to reduce or how to predict where a signal from a transmitting radar, where it goes and how it heads back to the receiver. And on any way you look at the F-117, there's only 4 surfaces that are ever exposed to radar. And they're flat surfaces, so if you hit one, it's going to reflect away. The only place you can get a strong signal, if you were shooting directly underneath the F-117 and you hit the bottom, which is all flat. Flat surface, no matter even if you're off 1 or 2 degrees, the signal's going to come, and it's not going to come back. It's going to go and it's going to head away. And that's what stealth is. Stealth is taking the radar signal, either absorbing it or reflecting it somewhere else. And that's something that the Russians helped us with. and the brain trust at the Lockheed Skunk Works helped us with.
I want to ask you, with the SR-71, it always said Mach 3.3 plus that it could fly. How come we never knew what that plus was?
Well, because it's probably 3.33. The airplane, most airplanes, when they fly, their envelope, operational envelope, is within 70% of the design max. With a Blackbird, it's like 96 or 97% of maximum performance out of that airframe. Now, the airplane is designed to fly at its optimum at Mach 3.24. That was a sweet spot. Anything faster, anything slower, it would there would be drag, additional drag, and you wouldn't get the performance out of it. To go above 3.3, a pilot would need the written permission from the wing commander, and that's very rarely given. In an emergency situation, you could firewall it, but the limiting factor on the speed of the airplane is where the shock wave enters the inlet. You go too fast, and the bow wake off the front of the airplane will blow the shock wave out of the inlet. And it's just the other area that is a major concern is the compressor inlet temperature. Anything above, I think it's 427 degrees C, which is 850 degrees Fahrenheit, or right along those lines. And the compressor inlet temperature is redlined at 427 C. So anything above that, you're going to start damaging the engine. You could possibly cause the engine to explode. And they've lost a couple airplanes to catastrophic engine failure. Plus, they lost a CIA pilot to catastrophic engine failure because he had a spike in the compressor inlet temperature, and then the airplane disappeared.
For you, as you look back on the Black Ops programs, you got to meet people like the legendary Ben Rich.
Yes.
And you became good friends with him. You got to meet others in this field. Is it true, Jim, what we do know is that what Ben Rich said, where we've already got the technology to take ET home again?
Well, he said that directly to me. He's stated it in it was a banquet for aerospace engineers. I think they're grad students from UCLA, and he made a comment that we have the ability to take ET home. But when I was with Jeff Babion, who's the new boss at the Lockheed Skunk Works, after he gave me the tour of the X-59 and some other stuff they were doing in there, nothing that the public doesn't already know about. As we're heading over to Site 2, we're in the back of a limousine. That sort of cracked me up. And who am I to get carted around with the boss of the Skunk Works in a limousine? So we're about halfway to Site 2, and I look at Jeff. I look him right in the eye. I say, okay, Jeff, what is the Lockheed Skunk Works involvement in UFO or UAPs, however you want it, flying saucers? And he looked me straight in the eye, and he said, Jim, I believe that stuff is possible, but I said, I honestly have absolutely no knowledge that Lockheed has ever been involved in any of this. He said, what happened before I came here, and maybe it's something compartmentalized that I have no access to. Lockheed could have been involved, and I would be willing to bet somewhere in one of the compartmental parts of the Lockheed Skunk Works and their design team, there's probably a what do you call him, the SPO, Special Project Officer at S4, and he probably had a chance to mingle with my friend Bob Lazar. So, if there's something, if Skunk Works is involved in this stuff, Well, let me back up. I would be dumbfounded if Lockheed wasn't involved. Now, Jeff said he has absolutely no knowledge, and he looked me square in the eye, and I honestly believe he has no knowledge of anything that Skunk Works may have done before he got there. And it came and went a long time ago, and now it's just, it's being managed by the Navy or whomever operates S4.
James Goodall is our guest tonight on Spaced Out Radio. We got 4 minutes before we got to go to break at the bottom of the hour. Now, would you believe in UFOs? Because you're somebody who has also dabbled in this topic. You've spoken at numerous UFO conferences over the years. How do you decipher and how do you get your information about whether or not it's theirs up in the sky or ours down here?
Well, everybody I've talked to in the aerospace industry, I'm talking about most of the writers and engineers at Aviation Week, at Flight Global. I've been tied into the aerospace community forever, it seems like. And it's just sort of the stuff. I usually go to the source. I mean, when I was interviewing Dave Fruehauf, he's since passed away, but he was an SR-71 pilot, and he called Lynchburg, Tennessee, home. That's the home of Jack Daniels, for those who don't know. And if you don't know, shame on you. It's a good Tennessee brew, that's for sure. But I was interviewing. This is back in the late '90s, mid '90s, and we were talking about his involvement with the Blackbirds and stuff like that. And I asked him, I said, do you believe in UFOs? Because I was really talking about his Blackbird crash. And I said, do you believe in UFOs? And he said, absolutely, positively do exist. I said, well, you want to expand upon that? And typically when someone says something like that, and I say, hey, you want to expand upon that? And they say, never mind. But he said, sure. And I've told the same story before, and I'm not sure if I've done it here, but for those of you who've heard it, you can either go and go take a break or listen to it, one of the two. Dave said this is late 72, early 73. He's flying an SR-71 out of Det-1 out of Kadena, Okinawa. He's on a night training mission. He's at it's 11:30 at night. He's at about 78,000 feet at Mach 2.7. They didn't fly at Mach 3.2, except if they're going through some test cards or they're going over target. 2.7, you don't thermally stress the airframe or its components. So I said, okay. So go on. He said it was about 11:30 at night. We're flying straight and level. It's a 3/4 moon off the port side. And we're going through our checklist. And I notice I get a glint off of something metallic 5 or 6 miles away and maybe 6,000 to 7,000 feet above them, going at the same speed in the same direction. So he gets on the horn and he contacts Kadena on secure voice. He said, do we have another bird up? He said, no, you were in the briefing. You're the only one up there. I said, no, I have company. I'm going to go take a look. So he advanced the throttles without taking his eye off of the object. And all of a sudden his backseater said, hey, Dave, we have company. I said, yeah, I'm going to go take a look. So he advances the throttles. Now, the SR-71 will fly at Mach 2.7 in minimum afterburner. It's a constant afterburning engine, but he's an absolute minimum throttle.
Jim, I'm going to get you to hold on right there. We're going to finish this SR-71 UFO story when we come back from the break here at the bottom of the hour. I hate doing this, people. I hate when this happens. But we're going to all have to pause. We're all going to have to wait, because we got to get some business taken care of here on Spaced Out Radio. The legendary James Goodall here with us tonight. UFOs, Are they theirs? Are they ours? The stories continue after this.
Yeah.
Sometimes I hate commercial breaks. Frig.
Well, but you need commercial breaks to generate revenue.
True.
I'm gonna go get some more water and see what the dog wants.
Yeah, you do that, boss.
Okay.
You do that.
Here, sweetie dog.
Mm-hmm. Hot damn, he was right in the middle of something there. That was good. Uh-huh. Do-do-do-do-do. Thanks, John Hudson. Got it. Gorgeous Jules. I do have aliens, including this one right here. This is my favorite. This one comes from Alaska's greatest athlete. I love this one. Right there. Hold on, we'll bring it back a little bit. I love that one. That one's got like powerful energy. No, I decided to go button up tonight. You know, we got a legend on. I can't look like a slob all the time there, Apollo 11. The gorgeous and talented Tammy Jackson has returned. Where's gorgeous Amy O? Where did she take off to? I know she's hiding somewhere listening in. She's not really a chatter, but easy cow, what a show. Cool. Cecil, how you doing, buddy? Good to see you. I swear Jim is like breaking something. No, I don't have a necktie on. Mark Sanchez, what's going on down in Southern California? Good to have you here, my friend. All right. I want to welcome back. Oh, there's Michael Lastuca, everyone. Take a bow, Michael. Well, I forgot to announce who will be signing autographs after tonight's show. Jesse Peak will be signing autographs. Line up to the right of the studio, to the right, and Cat Chaser will be signing autographs. You got to line up to the left. Now, remember, people, Cat Chaser does not like eye contact. So just go up to the table, kind of turn your head the opposite way, and she will sign it for you. It's just that easy. The gnome is awesome. This is my gnome. This was built specifically for me by a good friend, Michael. And it is awesome. It is awesome. I love it. Mm-hmm. There we go. There we go. How you doing there, Super Jim?
Talking to me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm doing good.
Surprised you don't have your cape on tonight.
Oh no, it's in the cleaners. Yeah.
Okay. Just making sure. Now, I got to tell our audience, my introduction to Jim was at the 2020 UFO Con in San Francisco. And I'm like, who is this guy? And because I honestly didn't know. And somebody literally almost slapped me across the head. Said, you don't know who the frig that is? I said, I don't get to a lot of conferences. That's legendary Jim Goodall. And Jim and I went and introduced myself. We got along fantastically. I sheepishly asked him if he'd ever come on our show. He's like, hell yeah, I would. And then like for 2 nights in a row, we sat in the restaurant all night long, and I just sat there and listened to Jim. Just listen to the fucking war stories. It was amazing. Amazing. God, I could sit in If anybody ever gets the opportunity to hear Jim Goodall speak, take the opportunity. It is that good. that good, and then sneak off to the bar with them afterwards.
But I don't drink.
No, but you still sit in the bar.
Oh, absolutely.
All right. The gorgeous and talented Amy W.C. is here. There she is. Thank you. And thank you, Amy, for the super chat. I'm always nervous about saying lovely and talented to new people in the chat room because I don't know how they're going to react. So that's why I'm always a little sheepish. But thank you, Cat Chaser, Tim, Simon, Andrew, Jeremy, Carl, Kyle, Michael, Filth, and the lovely Amy for the super chats tonight. Here we go. Continue on with Spaced Out Radio tonight, second half hour underway. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. Really do appreciate earning your listening ears. Want to remind you that if you missed portions of this show or others, check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show. We continue on tonight with legendary author James Goodall. And right before the break, I horribly had to cut you off for the break when you were telling an amazing story of an SR-71 pilot over Okinawa, Japan, having an encounter with a UFO.
Okay, now, well, I'll go back where I left off. Dave was at, this is Dave Fruehauf. He was at about 78,000 feet, Mach 2.7, when he sees something following him. This is at night, 11:30 at night, three-quarter moon. He calls Kadena, calls the command post, and they said, "No, you're up there by yourself." He said, "No, I'm not. I'm going to go take a look." So he advances the throttles. He starts climbing, and that's when his backseater says, "Hey, Dave, we have company." He said, "Yeah, I'm going to go take a look." And as he's climbing and he's banking towards the object. There's about a 10-degree bank. He never took his eye off the object, and he said it wasn't a smooth craft. He couldn't make out the shape, but he knew it had edges to it because that's what he's getting, the glints. It's metallic, so it's shiny, and he's getting it was a three-quarter moon at that altitude, puts out an awful lot of light. So when he was about maybe 1,000, 2,000 feet below it, and now a mile or so away from it, still can't make out the shape, this thing takes off on about a 30-degree angle of attack and leaves him in the dust. I mean, like he's heading the other direction. He figures that he lost it at about 180, 200,000 feet in altitude and left him probably going somewhere in the neighborhood of Mach 12, Mach 16.
Wow.
And I mean, he was blown away. And of course, back in the 70s and even through the 90s, I asked my boss, it was General Gatlin. I said, General Gatlin, I said, if you were to see a UFO, and he says, I chased one. I said, oh my God, I got two now. He said, I said, what is the policy for a pilot or a crew member to report a flying saucer or a UFO? And he said, you're better off when you land, go to the O Club, take a couple stiff drinks and go home and talk to yourself, because the only thing that's going to happen back in the last century is that you'll be ridiculed. It will affect your career, and they'll think this guy has a loose screw or two. It was not a career enhancement to see or report on a UFO. Now on his UFO, this is the mid-1950s. He's on alert in an F-94C, and it's another Skunk Works derived airplane from the P-80. And he's on alert, and they get a call to the alert hangar from Findlay Air Force Station, which is on the North Shore of Lake Superior, about halfway between Duluth and Thunder Bay, Ontario. And they get a call, there's an high-speed unknown over Lake Superior heading towards Minnesota, heading towards Findlay. So they, in alert, they jump in their airplanes. Within 5 minutes, they're airborne. They're in full burner, which you can't be very long in those older airplanes, but they tried to get out into the area that it was last reported in. And General Gatlin said he could see this object in front of him, and he's closing in on him. And this is during the peak of the Cold War. I mean, it's shortly after the end of World War II, shortly after the end of Korea. So we're a little bit trigger happy. So his WISO, his weapons systems operator, in the back, he turns on the threat, the weapons radar, and as soon as he locks on, the radar goes boom and dies. So he resets the circuit breakers, powers it up again, tries to lock on again. As soon as he locks on, the radar dies. And this went on for 3 different times, and this thing is now hauling tail heading towards the shore, heading directly towards Findlay. Then Findlay gets on the horn. He said, Duluth F-94s. I said he was heading right towards us, but he didn't go past us. So I don't know if it just disappeared or what. And General Gatlin, at the time he was a major. He said he went into full burner to try to catch up to whatever these things were. And he said, well, the reason it's not showing up on your radar, as you now can see it, it says it's directly over your radar and bubble. They had one of the geodesic domes. It's in Minnesota, about northern tier countries. And as they got closer, all of a sudden, this thing shot straight up. And it was visibility unlimited, and it went right to the roof. Now, to continue to go back with Dave Fruehauf, I said, well, is that it? And he said, no. I said, when I retired from the Air Force in 1980, I didn't want my security clearance and everything to go to waste, so I applied for a job and got it. He got a job as facility manager at Area 51. What a terrible place to have to be
kidding.
A facility manager. So he was really curious, and he knew most of the guys that were there. And he said he waited a while. He was there about a year before he started asking questions, because you don't ask questions in that environment. You start asking questions, and you're out of there. So over drinks or dinner, he started talking to some of the guys and said, "Hey, back 15 years ago or so, did we ever flight test anything that could outrun an SR-71? And everybody said, no. Why do you ask? I said, well, just curious. And he did that for the whole 5 years he was there. And I said, well, did you get any answers at all? And he said, no. I said, but one thing I did learn, I was facility manager at Area 51. There's no underground facility there. I was responsible for absolutely every single structure within the confines of Area 51 and the test site. And he said, that doesn't mean that there aren't underground facilities in the Nevada desert, because it's just on the other side of the Papoose Range. They have the ability, that's where the Nevada test site is. They have the ability to drill a 36-foot diameter tunnel through solid granite, and you can make about a foot an hour, and you can hold within a few thousandths of an inch of being, right on the center line. So the ability is there. I said, but you have to take into consideration when you have an underground facility, there has to be an entrance and an exit power, unless it's a small nuclear reactor, and it's all self-contained. And you'd have to have a place for for exhaust gases and stuff to be vented. There has to be some venting in there somewhere. And he said, I've been all over that place. I've flown all over the test site, both the Nevada test site and the Nellis Range, as well as, the entire, I think it's 750 square miles of Nevada that the government owns. And he said, I've flown all over it. And he says, I'm always looking, and I've never seen any evidence. It doesn't mean it doesn't exist. So he said, I said, well, what about this place called S4? He said, well, he's heard some people commenting on another place in the general vicinity, but he never knew of an actual place called S4. Now, he did ask some of the old timers that were there in the late 80s and early 90s who flew the red and whites. Those are the Janet flights that fly out of McCarran. They fly out of Palmdale Air Force Plant 42. They fly out of Hill and fly out of Dugway. And that's primarily spooky transport. That's basically what it is. They go to all the real secret locations, the classified locations. And he said two people vaguely remember seeing a Robert Lazar on the Janet flights. So that's another thing to Bob can hang his hat on. And I'm at the UFO conference in August. I'm in Las Vegas. When that is done, I'm driving up and I'm going to go spend a day or two with Bob.
Nice.
Yes, I've been invited. They said they have a nice guest house, and it's Joy's Horse Ranch, I guess you call it.
Very cool.
Yes.
Very cool. Are you stunned that, speaking of Bob Lazar, that 30 years later we are still having the great debate on whether or not he is legit?
He's had every opportunity to change his story, to embellish it. He hasn't. In over 30 years, he has not. And early on, it was very, very beneficial if he'd have said, yeah, I saw some grays, or I saw some video of grays, and I saw video of this or that. And he said there were indications at S4 that the grays are around. And he said there's a poster, and it's almost like Paul. You see the movie Paul with his two English actors.
Yeah, I love that movie.
I just love it too. And he said there was a poster with a character almost looking like Paul, and he says, "We're here," and that was the only thing that he saw while he was at that facility that was giving any indication whatsoever that UFOs were real and aliens are real. I mean, I was a docent at Kitt Peak National Observatories, just about 50 miles due west of downtown Tucson. And up there are 22 optical telescopes and 2 radio telescopes. The optical telescopes go from a 12-inch to a 4-meter. That's the Mayall telescope. And the 2.1 meter was operated by Caltech for 5 years, and their job was to look for exoplanets. Those are planets that appear outside of our solar system. Exoplanets in a very, very small area of our Milky Way, not outside of our galaxy, not in the universe, but just within our Milky Way. And in a small area over a 5-year period, they cataloged 8,000 exoplanets.
Wow.
And now, I mean, and that's just looking at a small area. So they that program ended, and about the same time that Caltech ended its program, we had a meeting of all the docents technicians and astronomers at Kitt Peak, and everybody was down at the University of Arizona campus. And one of the head astronomers from the National Science Foundation was there to speak. And he had just returned from a conference where all of the astronomers around the world that are looking at exoplanets, they had a mind meld, if you want to call it. They sat down and excuse me, and determined where everything, what's happening, where is it happening, and whatever, and based on proven mathematical formulas, based on all their observations from all the different astronomers, they calculated after this conference that for every star in the universe, now that's a number you can't even put enough zeros behind, but for every star in the universe, there are 1.5 planets. And out of those 1.5 planets per star, that incredible number, they calculate that there are 2 billion, and that's with a B, 2 billion Earth-like planets orbiting a similar brown dwarf star such as our sun in the inhabitable zone with liquid water. And to quote Jodie Foster's character in the movie Contact, if we're the only ones, what a waste of space. So we can't be alone. I mean, the odds are of us being the only ones out of the trillions upon trillions and trillions of stars and planets. You have to be narrow-minded or closed-minded not to think that there's a possibility that we're not alone.
James Goodall is our guest tonight on Spaced Out Radio. Jim, I want to ask you, because over the last little bit here, we've seen a real push towards any sort of disclosure and or confirmation of the UAP phenomena. It's gone straight to the DNI report, which I think if you're involved in the UFO field, we're all kind of disappointed to it because it was like Christmas Day and getting, socks from Santa Claus.
Or dirty underwear.
Or dirty underwear, exactly. And yet here we are, still hopeful, because that's all we know in the UFO world is how to be hopeful. When you look at the videos we've seen or the craft that they are encountering that we know is the Tic Tac or the pyramids, how do we know whether or not those are ours or theirs?
I think, and again, it's just my opinion, I think if they were to definitely say, hey, these are ours, then you would really freak somebody out. And if they would definitely say, no, they're alien derived, you would freak people out. So I don't think they had a choice as far as releasing some of the information, because so much has been released. And when a pilot or a crew member or even someone in the military, when they formally swear that they saw a UFO or UAP, and they're not summarily chastised. They're not going to risk. A lot of the guys weren't going to risk their career. Now that the cat's out of the bag, it is. It's more. It's easier to tell people what you saw. And a good example of the paranoia that is involved in disclosure. Now, this goes back it was the mid to late 80s. I was at Cannon Air Force Base in Clovis, New Mexico. And my escort was a staff sergeant from public affairs. And I was going to go out and photograph as many of the F-111s that I could. And as we're heading towards the flight line, I said, well, where were you stationed before you came to Cannon? He said, Bentwaters, Wheat Ridge. I said, oh, you were there when the UFO landed. He slams on the brakes. I mean, and he's a black gentleman, and he turned gray, literally. I mean, the color went out of his face. And he says, if you make one more comment about about where I was and what may have happened, I will have you escorted off this base. I said, hey, I just asked a question. Sorry if you got offended. And I didn't say another word, but that was another nail in the coffin, so to speak, of the UFO deniers. And you can only do that for so long. I mean, when a general officer chases one in an F-94, when a lieutenant colonel chases one in an SR-71, when one lands at a military base in the UK, and the base commander and public affairs and other people go out to that site and they actually have some type of interaction with, excuse me, with whomever was there, I think it's about time that some of it starts breaking loose. It's just, we as humans, that includes you, Dave.
Oh, thank you.
Even though you're Canadian.
I know.
Yeah, I've had some of the most gorgeous women I've seen in my life are Canadian, but they were in Montreal.
Long ways away.
Yes. And it's getting to a point where they can no longer keep that stuff buttoned up. And now with everyone with smartphones that have incredible cameras on them, now all we need is somebody with a good telephoto lens when there's something flying around. Because if you just see a little pixel up there and it sort of changes shape, but it's still a pixel, that means there was something up there that was moving. But until someone has some high resolution, high definition photos or video, I think everybody is there's more believers now than ever before, but I think until we see something definitive, and my theory where it has to happen is doing a live press conference on the Rose Garden, having one land right where the helicopter pad is, and hopefully it's not like Mars Attacks.
No.
And, yeah.
And I still think that would have been. We got about 2 minutes to go here before we have to go to break at the top of the hour. Jim Goodall is our guest tonight on Spaced Out Radio. There is the great debate whether from majority of the people who are debating this are amateurs. They've never served time in the military. They've never, studied anything except amateur aviation. Does it disappoint you as a guy who's been in this all your life, knowing that there's something going on and yet there's so much resentment towards these Tic Tac videos?
One of the things that if you're working in a secure environment and you need a high level clearance, one of the things that the security managers have are a tremendous amount of power. Because if you do something inappropriate or you do something to go against the grain, so to speak, as far as the military is concerned, all they have to do is pull your clearance, and you're screwed. You can't get a job in the area that you spent most of your life. And I think it's those people who feel threatened. They've been able to control the narrative for so long, and now they're losing that control, and they're losing that ability to literally control people because of their clearances. But it's as the younger generation comes in, or those that are more flexible than the rest of us, those of us that have been around for a long time, I think that's one of the reasons why things are starting to loosen up, because it's a new generation of people in charge of the cookie jar, so to speak.
Very much so. Jim, I'm going to get you to hold on right there because we are going to go to break here at the top of the hour. And what an interesting show so far. 1 hour down, we got Jim for another 90 minutes here on Spaced Out Radio. You can find any of his books at any major bookstore in the aviation section, because they don't have a woo section. They don't have a UFO section. So you got to go to aviation.
Yeah.
He is a legend, everyone. We're glad he's not only a friend of this show, but loves coming on the radio with us as well. James Goodall, Hour 2 next on Spaced Out Radio with your questions. Melinda Leslie says, hello, I love you.
Say hello back.
She can hear you. She's in the chat room. Our YouTube audience can still hear us now. Do you want to chat with them? Because I got to run my dogs outside.
Well, I got to get some water.
Okay, I'll just put your mic on mute, and I'll be right back, okay?
Okay, sounds good.
Okay. Be right back, people. All right, Uncle Jimbo, I'm back. Let's get you all set up here. All right. All right.
Speaking of Leslie, we had a fun time in Sedona. Was it the first weekend after Memorial Day? We went out to the Bradshaw Ranch on Saturday night. Oh, that was really. I mean, it's not. I don't think it's as spooky as Skinwalker, but it was a real strange place, and the fact that it was an operating restaurant and bar there in the middle of nowhere is really quite amazing. It was a fun group of people.
Nice.
Yeah.
Awesome. I wish I could have got down there for that. I really do.
Yeah, the border's closed. If you want to be an illegal alien and snake in, you'll be okay.
Well, I was thinking of claiming refugee status.
Where you'd probably get it.
I would love to move down there. Once my show takes off and we get picked up, I'm moving to Vegas. Big thank you to Apollo, Alicia, Elaine, Carl times 2, Amy, Filth, Michael, Kyle, and Jeremy, Andrew, Simon, Tim, and Kat for the super chats. Here we go with hour 2, everyone.
You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott. Follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Facebook, Spaced Out Radio Show.
Hour number 2 of Spaced Out Radio is underway tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. Really do appreciate earning your listening ears wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Want to remind you that you can tune us in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America or digitally on TalkStream Live, Revolution Radio, and KPNL. All of our archives are free by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Juxtapositive. Juxtapositive is your password. Use it wisely, space travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram, Spaced Out Radio Show. Legendary aviation author and historian Jim Goodall is with us tonight. UFOs, are they ours? Are they theirs? Whose are they? And what's a black project and what's not? We're hitting it all tonight. You can find any of Jim's books at any major bookstore around North America as well as online. Jim, welcome back.
It's my pleasure.
I want to open this up to the audience because I know they have a ton of questions. And normally when we have you on every few months, I'm so filled with questions that I kind of bypass them. So let's get to it right now. Black Rabbit is asking, Jim, are there any good SR-71 stories a la Chuck Yeager and the Sled Driver?
Chuck Yeager was honored because of who he is and what he's done. He flew in the SR-71B 956, and that is his only flight. And that's generally where they're going to give someone a ride. Back in the day when the Blackbirds were operational, it would be in the trainer, the instructor pilot in the elevated rear cockpit, and the guest rider, if you want to call it that, in the front. So I do have a picture of him after his one and only SR-71 flight, and I tried my damnedest to get him one, but the only thing I ever accomplished was being in the cockpit of an A-12 Blackbird at 33,000 feet at Mach 0.72 inside another airplane. And you've seen some of my pictures, I think, of the movement.
That was in a C5, wasn't it?
Correct.
Yeah, that was beautiful. Beautiful.
So, I mean, people say, well, I've done this, I've done that. And I say, well, I've done something that no one else has done and will never be able to have an opportunity to do because there's no more SR-71s flying. And that is to be in the cockpit of one inside another airplane. And that was That's my claim to fame. Even Ben Rich, when I told Ben, I said, Ben, I have 45 minutes in the cockpit of a Blackbird, an A-12 Blackbird, at 33,000 feet, a Mach 0.72. And he says, I'm almost ready. I'm almost tempted to give you a Mach 3 card. I wish he would have. That'd have been fun. And he was going to take the X, and make it a minus. So it'd be a Mach 3 minus card. But I'm the only one in the world who's could ever accomplish that, because they don't do it anymore. And you had to be able to scrounge a C5, which I was able to do also. So
you have that pull. I don't know how you do it, but you have that pull. And I got to actually sit in an SR-71 cockpit. I think it was 8 and an A-12 at Boeing Field. That's the M21 full airplane. Yeah. And the cockpit you sat in is 977. That is an SR-71. Yes, I have my daughter's picture in there from her sitting in there. I love that photo.
Good.
Doc is asking, Jim, have you ever heard anything about how quantum computing might affect aircraft design and air defense?
Well, they say that quantum computing is the next thing, and that's going to allow us to travel at faster than the speed of light, be able to develop elements that don't exist in nature, and be able to figure out, the answer to the universe. How do we get here? I think that will be one of the things that quantum computing will allow us to do. But it was like before the Wright brothers ever flew an airplane. How is that going to affect the world? Well, who wants to fly? Nobody. And birds fly. That's about it. That changed. And then we got to telephones. Then we got to TV. I mean, I'm sure the guys that developed TV back in the 1930s could look at one of these 5K or 8K screens that it's 72 inches across, and you can almost feel them breathe as the program goes. So quantum computing will do that to the computing world and to the world in general, to what all the inventions that have come within the last 120 years. I mean, it's the next step in evolution.
Very true. Solar Warden is asking, James, has anyone ever seen the supposed videotape Area 51 researcher Chick Clark took of an aurora taking off from Groom Lake?
No. Bob Lazar said he was in the Janet flight landing at Area 51 on his way to S4 when he heard, they weren't deplaning the airplane yet. He heard what he's called the loudest noise he's ever heard. He said it sounded like the sky ripping. Now, a NASA engineer stopped me again. This is in the 90s. He said, Jim, you know a little bit about everything. I said, don't I wish? He said, what can you tell me about aurora? And I said, all I know is that a number of people have heard the noise, heard the sound of aurora, and Bob was one of them. And the late John Andrews from Testers and myself heard what we believe is the pulse detonation engine used on aurora. Aurora was a Mach 12, Mach 16 manned air breathing program. I believe it was used for not necessarily treaty verification, but it was used to map out and to be able to track down fissionable material that was supposedly lost and or absconded with when the Soviet Union collapsed. And I believe the airplane, we have the ability in P3s, now the P8, which is the replacement for the P3, to look down on a warship from another country and be able to tell from the air, looking down on it, how much fissionable material is on that ship. We've had that ability since the mid-'70s. The Russians have had that ability since the early '70s. So they could be at a choke point, like the Straits of Hormuz going in the Persian Gulf. They could be on the shore looking at a ship, and they can tell you there's X number of pounds of fissionable material, the equivalent of X number of bombs or warheads.
Really?
So I believe Aurora. Now, I've mentioned it to people who I know, and I said, if I'm way off base, let me know. And I said, this thing is used for for tracking down the movement of fissionable materials, primarily from the former Soviet Union and its breakaway republics. And I believe we had the permission from the Russians and from all the Persian Gulf entities to literally overfly, take off from Area 51 on a mother airplane, much like the tester model, the SR-75 and XR-7 penetrator, as John called it, to take off from Area 51 to overfly, head towards the Barents Sea, which is north of Russia, launch an Aurora, and it's fueled by liquid methane. That's the primary fuel. It's going to overfly the Soviet Union, the former Soviet Union, and it's at 200,000 feet, 180 to 200,000 feet, much like what Dave Fruehauf chased, but a different time frame. It will fly over the former Soviet Union, and it will be able to see or to be able to sense through its sensors fissionable material in Belarus, in the Ukraine, and other breakaways, including that of Iran, Iraq, and anybody else in that area that has a desire to have nuclear weapons. And they could recover Diego Garcia, or they could be refueled in midair from a KC-135 or probably a KC-10, which is a DC-10 military version. And there's no difference. It isn't any more difficult to air refuel with a cryogenic fuel as it is with Jet A or JP4 or JP7. So a recovery team would be in Diego Garcia. It would launch. It would meet the Aurora, air refuel it. It would go back to Mach 12, whatever, and fly back to Area 51. And you remember back in the early 90s, there was all sorts of double sonic booms. We believe that those are the Aurora coming back.
Right. I got a question for you. When they are in flight refueling on a project as secretive as the Aurora, do they have certain KC-10s or 135s that will refuel them? Because I can't see those being the same people who are refueling the F-15s, F-16s, and so forth.
Well, they could be the same people, but they typically will stay with one squadron and maybe two, depending on if they need capabilities in the East Coast and the West Coast. So you have a dedicated air refueling team that has been vetted and cleared to see things above top secret. Right. And that's how they do it.
Okay. Let's go to Kevin's question. Jim, what are the last 4 major projects that came out of Skunk Works?
I think the most exciting one that no one's talking about is their compact fusion reactor. And you're saying, well, what the hell is that you're going to use for? That is they're developing non-radioactive fusion reactor system that will fit in a 40-foot standard container box that you see going down the train tracks or being loaded on ships or being in people's backyards for storage. A 40-foot one that will have the power to supply electricity for a city of 100,000 people. And it cannot do it can't melt down. The core can't melt down. It requires no maintenance. It is a totally self-contained unit, and the end product is non-radioactive once the thing has reached its life expectancy. And what is being designed for is for our military, whether it's Army, Navy, Marines, Air Force, or whomever, Space Force, land at a remote location. You're in the middle of the Saudi frontier, or worse, you're about 200 miles north of Winnipeg, and you're going to create a facility there for whatever, and there's no power plants to bring electricity in, or generators would be cost an arm and a leg. Fly the container in on a C-17 or a C-5. I don't think it can fit into a C-130. So it'd have to be one of the bigger transport aircraft. Offload it. You have the ability almost instantly to have enough power for a small city.
Right.
And you may need an operator or someone who knows where the on switch is and where you plug in the rest of the town. And that's basically it. That's probably the most exciting thing. The other thing I mentioned earlier is the X-59, which is a supersonic test bed to determine if, through shaping, if it could reduce the shock wave at ground level. And what it is, they're trying to figure a way that we can have supersonic aircraft, commercial aircraft, going across the United States. Right now, you have to go subsonic, and it's something that they've wanted to do ever since Congress decided that you can't fly a supersonic commercial airplane over populated parts of the U.S. The other one I'd have to say are there's unmanned spooky birds such as the RQ-170, which is the Beast of Kandahar. They have a half a dozen unmanned aircraft that have been flying. Some of them are one-offs. Some of them, took off and then crashed. But if you don't break things, you're not expanding the envelope. The other area is Lockheed is building a 210,000 square foot facility that it's going to share with Boeing, and it's going to be on ISR, which is intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance. And I asked Jeff, I said, what does that entail? And he said, I said, I can't tell you, other than the fact that it's ISR related, and that it's a program that they're working with Boeing on.
Right. Let's go to more questions because they are piling up here, if you don't mind. YJ is asking, what elements of the SR-71 carried forward to propel our next generation of suborbital flight?
Well, up until the time the Blackbird flew, it had only been 15 years since Jaeger went Mach 1 in a rocket-powered airplane. So the elements are composites. Most of the exterior skin on the Blackbird's plastic. It's a special plastic. It's radar absorption capabilities. It has real high thermal loads, no stress loads. It can't take physical stress, but it can take the heat from high-speed flight. And you need a spacesuit. You need a spacesuit to fly the SR-71 because you're flying less than 1/10% of the atmosphere at 80,000 feet to 80 to 90,000 feet. So those are the elements that they've learned. They learned how to operate them, how to work efficiently, with that technology. So that's what's. People would say, well, the SR-71 can go into orbit. No, the highest an SR-71 or a Blackbird can go is going to be 18, 19 miles, 62 miles to space. So they're bumping it on its rear end, trying to get up there. The airplane would not be capable of going into space. The systems aren't set up for it. It's there's a huge difference between flying in the air, even thin air, and flying in a vacuum.
All right, let's get to Bim Jim here. let's get Bim Jim here. Do you think Elon Musk is using anti-gravity technology?
No, I don't think so. I look at SpaceX's posts every morning, and I share them on Facebook. I mean, the fact that Rocketdyne, when they were building engines for the Saturn V or any of the other rockets, it takes years to develop, and they only have they buy them in bulk, so they have 6 or 7 as spares for the next couple of flights, and it takes a year or 2 years to build a motor up. Elon Musk said once he has the facility built at his Texas location, the Boca Chica location, he's going to be pumping out 2 of those engines a day. Says he's building rocket engines like they built Volkswagens back in World War II. I mean, it's just boom, 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 boom. It's just, and they're coming out the door. I mean, my God, his super heavyweight, when it takes off, I think in the next couple of weeks, it's going to have 33 engines. I mean, it's just amazing. He's doing it on his own nickel. I mean, he's getting flights on his SpaceX, his Falcon 9, that's paying part of the stuff. But this is all coming out of his pocket. And you look at, he launches one that comes down and it crashes. Oh, damn. Well, 3 days later, another one goes up and it comes down. And it almost makes it. It lands. And then it falls over, blows up. Oh, I know what the bugs are. If that had been NASA, everything would have been shut down for a year or 2 years as they analyzed what went wrong. Musk knew what went wrong shortly after the crash, because the telemetry told him that. And he's just, I'm just absolutely amazed at what he's been able to accomplish. And just watching him put that tower together with that crane. I mean, that's the largest crane in the world. I mean, it's going up, 80, 90 feet, 120 feet. I mean, that's a movable crane. I mean, they're lifting pretty heavy objects up there.
90 seconds left.
Sure.
Let's get to Amy's question. Her uncle flew the Concorde way back. What is your opinion on that plane design?
Well, the airplane that United Airlines just sent, paid options for, 30 of them with 50 more. It's basically a mini Concorde. The problem with the Concorde, one, it's transatlantic, not transpacific, and that's where your time saving is. And it was a beautiful airplane. It was, I think it was built for prestige more than anything else. When the program building the Concorde ended, the Concordes were given for $1 or $1 equivalent to both Air France and British Airways. And the French could never make a profit out of it, but it was a status symbol for that particular airline. And I believe even with the airplane not costing them anything other than maintenance and repair, I think the Brits did a little bit better. But the Concorde is a beautiful airplane. I had a chance to be the last person to go down the emergency slide from the cockpit area of the Concorde when it landed at Boeing Field back here in the 90s. I was there. I was working for the Museum of Flight.
I walked through that.
Yeah,
I walked through that Concorde.
It's a small airplane.
Very tiny. Very tiny. Jim, I'm going to get you to hold on right there. We're going to continue with audience questions when we come back from the break here at the bottom of the hour, rather. Yes, Jim Goodall talking aviation, UFOs. We got it all tonight with the legend of aviation history. Find any of his books in any major bookstore or online. We're having a great time tonight on Spaced Out Radio. Stick with us. Let's talk some airplanes and UFOs. All right, we're clear.
I'm amazed how fast the time goes.
I know.
And I really enjoy it. I mean, I don't have any airplane friends here in Tucson. I don't even have any UFO friends here in Tucson. I pretty much keep to myself. I have a.
You got to move. You got to move.
No, the only place I would go back to, even though it's mostly destroyed now because of the pandemic, and that's Hawaii. I spent 4 years there as a curator at the Pacific Aviation Museum in Pearl Harbor, and I just miss it, and because I probably had more adult friends that I acquired versus being pawned off to husbands from friends of my wife or my wives, plural. I've had a couple of them.
Well, you're on your second hand now, aren't you?
Number 4.
I know. I'm just teasing.
Yeah. The first one was 20 years, and she's like my sister today. I talk to her a couple times a month, and I have for 30 years. We've been divorced. The second one was the Antichrist. She was punishment for something evil I did in a past life, and she's Greek in that years. And then I was married to the fraud who took me for everything. And I didn't know I was being taken. And it was a fun ride until I realized that not only do I don't get the brass ring, she sold the carousel from underneath me. So, but then I ended up with Rosemary, and she's...
you got a winner.
Yeah. She's a character. She's a retired flight attendant. She's my Nazi. She's 100% German, and that goes along with my dog too. They're brown-eyed radicals. Yeah. So, but I mean, not many wives would say, it's okay if you have a Corvette. Oh, you want to go on a 2-week, 3-week road trip? Well, have a good time. Don't forget to call. And I do that all the time. I mean,
Jennifer is wondering if you're part of the Friday pilots down in Tucson.
No, I don't know of them.
Me either.
I know some of the quiet birdmen, and I can't be a quiet birdman because I don't have a pilot's license. Else I would. Right. And that would be a group I'd enjoy, being with. So.
Yeah.
And I'd like to to volunteer at the PMA Air and Space Museum, but the current executive director, for some reason, got pissed off at me because I corrected him on something privately 10 years ago or whatever. So when
you're an asshole now. You're an asshole now.
Yeah, and they need people. That's the thing that's driving me nuts. They need people.
Oh, I don't know what it is with museum curators, Jim. I could strangle the ones here. I could.
Oh, speaking about there, because they're out of room, the de Havilland Comet, the world's first jet airliner that I spent 10 years working on, may go to the museum up in Sydney.
One second. Block Chic, why would I feel super creeped out? I don't know. Let me know about why I'm creeped out. 1 second here. I know I missed a bunch of questions here because the chat room skipped on me twice. It's moving so fast. So if I don't get to your question, could you please do me a favor, retype them, and I will get them to Jim. And appreciate that. Cat Chaser, thank you for the second super chat tonight. Apollo, Alicia, Minister Elaine, Carl ×2, Amy, Filth, Michael, Kyle, Tim, Simon, Andrew, and Jeremy as well. Really appreciate the love and support of Spaced Out Radio that you guys show. And hi, D. Swagger, how are you? They're still coming in. Still coming in. That's awesome. And, yeah, we've got about 30 seconds here, Jim.
Okay.
Go back up here.
Yeah. Anytime you want me on, I'll just...
Oh, we're going to have to bring you back. Thanks, Chad, for that super chat, man. Really appreciate it, brother. We passed the halfway point of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. Really do appreciate earning your listening ears. Want to remind you that if you missed portions of this show or others, check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show. We continue on tonight with James Goodall. He is one of the top authors in the world when it comes to aviation and black projects. You can find all of his books at any major bookstore or online. Mr. Goodall, welcome back.
It's my pleasure, Dave.
All right. Excalibur is asking, have you ever heard of airframes that were kept at cryogenic temperatures?
No, it would be hard to keep one at cryogenic temperatures in our atmosphere. Outside our atmosphere, not so much of a problem, since it can get down to 250 degrees Fahrenheit. That's a minus, by the way. So no, I have not heard of airframes that are kept at cryogenic temperatures. And also, if you get something that cold, metal becomes very, very brittle. So I don't know if it would be a wise idea. But I don't know what the application is, so I'm just, shooting in the sky.
Filth is asking, do you think the Avro Arrow, how can you tell he's Canadian, was ever used for inspiration for aircraft that came after?
The Arrow was a beautiful, beautiful airplane, and why they canceled it. The same with the TSR-2 that the Brits were working on about the same time frame. Did it give inspiration to something that followed it? I think if it had gone into service, I would have to say more than likely it was. Aeronautical engineers and design people saying if an airplane looks beautiful on the ground, it will probably fly beautifully in the air. The exception being the F-117. That was just butt ugly.
Really? I'm offended by that. I thought it was gorgeous.
Well, I was the first civilian to photograph one at the fence line at Tonopah. It goes against everything that you think about when you think about airplanes. Airplanes should look like the Blackbird, should look like the F-104 or the F-15 or F-16 or F-14 or any of them. And the F-117 doesn't look like any of them. It looks like an arrowhead, or it looks like an origami that decided to go rogue and become an airplane.
You know what an ugly jet is? The F-35. I think it's ugly.
It's big and ugly.
Yeah.
It's a big airplane. Yeah, it's a big motor they have in it.
Yeah, it's ugly. It's just it's an ugly aircraft.
I have a number of friends that that have been heavily involved in trying to shoot the F-35 down, and the people are coming back when I've asked them questions. Why the F-35? It doesn't have long legs. You can't use it to fly a squadron or a wing of these things to China if we're going to get into a shooting game with China. And that's also why the F-22 is talking about they're going to retire the F-22 early, because it was built and designed for a European war zone, and they've now figured that if, and that's a big if we're to have a military conflict, it's going to be with China,
right,
and or the fat Nork, North Korea.
You know what's funny about that is the third generation of the fighters, because we're in the fourth generation here, but the third generation of fighters, between the airframes, the technology, their durability, from going from the F-15, F-16, F-18, even the A-10. I mean, these are just workhorses that just keep on going. I mean, with airframes that just do not give up.
Well, I mean, it's like the U-2. Good designs are really have no end game, because what makes the F-16 and now the new F-15S X, I think it is, with the glass cockpit. I think they've ordered. I think our government's ordered 144 of them to replace older F-15Cs primarily. But it's a good design. Good designs, I mean, they're still good. I mean, you put new technology in them, put new motors in them, you put new computers in them, and if you're still going after the same mission, whether it be air defense or whether it be air superiority, like I keep going back to Ben Rich, he said, good designs never really go out of style. And if you had if the F-15 and the F-16 are strong designs, which they are, take the B-52. The first B-52 flew in 1952. My gosh, that's over almost 60 years ago.
Longer.
70 years ago.
But they said it had a 100-year body. And they could still, if they needed to,
well, I have one too. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, but they said with the B-52 that even the ones that are parked in the boneyard, they could be up and running in no time if necessary, because the bodies are so strong.
Well, today's military aircraft, the B-2, the B-1, those are the only two new bombers we built. Now the B-21, they're built as light as possible. If they can shave a millimeter or whatever off of a beam, and it's going to save 2 pounds, that's 2 more pounds of fuel they can carry, or 2 more pounds of weapons they can carry. The B-52 was built to withstand the rigors of 24-hour-a-day flying around the sky. Back in the 50s and 60s, up until, I think it was the mid-80s, maybe the early 80s, where we were still flying. We still had at least a dozen B-52s in the sky, fully loaded with nuclear weapons, much like the movie Failsafe. I don't know if anybody's old enough to have seen that movie. It's also a good book. But it's something that the airframes had to be able to withstand takeoff and landings and long times in the air. And typically, if you're just flying, you're not going to stress the airframe, but you're flying in all kinds of weather, so that thing's bouncing all over the place. And it's just, and we had at one time almost 800 B-52s.
Yes.
Now I think there's 74, 75 are considered, mission capable.
Right.
Or have that capability.
Let's move on here. Apollo is asking, have you ever heard of the Alcubierre warp drives?
No. I'm sorry, I have not.
All right. Not a problem. Not a problem. Block Chic is asking, What is a sonic black hole? Have you heard of this?
I was going to get disgusting, but I decided not to. I'm not sure what they're referring to as far as a sonic black hole.
That's okay.
I mean, when you go through the air and you punch a hole through the air, you're creating a hole. But it's a black hole. I have no knowledge.
Black Rabbit is asking, what is your opinion on the Phoenix Lights case?
Well, I live in Tucson, so I'm only 90 miles away from Phoenix, and I have a lot of friends in the Phoenix area that have seen the lights. My thought, I haven't seen them. I haven't seen the lights myself, so I can't. I really can't say this is my my opinion of what I saw. Is just from what I heard. There's a remote possibility that those were flares that were being launched out of the Barry Goldwater bombing range, which is not that far south of the city. It's probably 100 miles away, but if you're high enough or whatever, who knows where light can travel to? I mean, because of atmospheric inversions and whatever. So, the person who asked that question would be Michael Schratt, and I know he would love to be on your program too. By the way,
I thought he wasn't allowed to do interviews right now.
Well, he's gotten real. It's a delicate situation. He works for a major aerospace company.
Yes. And
someone saw one of his UFO podcasts or YouTube pieces where he mentioned the company he eventually went to work for. And their anti-terrorism task force pulled him into a conference room and had a conference with him for an hour or so. And they basically said that we're watching you. So I think he's gone a little bit overboard as far as his level of paranoia and not being able to keep his job.
Well, you still got to live.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. No one does better research than Michael. Nobody.
Agreed.
And he has, I think he said 70 or 80 4-drawer filing cabinets filled with documentation documenting specific UFO sightings going back to the late 1800s. And
wow.
He put together his book. I think because of the pandemic, things sort of got slowed down a lot.
Right.
But he was going to he started, I think he had an ebook that had 18 chapters, and he covers 18 specific programs with beautiful graphics and first person interviews and all the supporting documents that goes with it. I think it'd be worthwhile for you, and I talk to him 2 or 3 times a week, and I know he likes what you do, and he likes Spaced Out Radio.
I'm a fan of his, big time,
and so am I. And at first, all I ever heard him give a presentation was in San Francisco.
He is amazing.
Yeah,
amazing.
And the thing that's sad, he doesn't think anybody thinks he's worth anything. As far as,
do you remember when in San Francisco, the last time we were there, when Joe and Ben from UFO Garage and myself, we were giving him the Wayne's World treatment of we're not worthy. Yeah. Honestly, I mean, Michael is such a humble man,
yes,
and doesn't understand the impact that he has had on the UFO community with his incredibly accurate research.
And he is a one of a kind. And he said, "Well, I'm just following your footsteps," referring to me. And I'm 76 years old, so I have 25 years left of going out in the desert and having little red dots on my chest. Michael is a one of a kind, and absolutely nobody spends the time or energy during research that Michael does. Nobody. And he is I can't say a diamond in the rough, because he's a known but undiscovered true gem of a researcher.
It's an absolute shame when you see, and I want to move on to other questions here, but it's an absolute travesty, Jim, when you see Michael Schratt not on barely any documentaries out there about UFOs or flying craft, and you see the same talking heads who give the same speech on the same documentaries each and every time. You know what I'm saying? And here's Michael, who is literally a wall of encyclopedias on this subject. It's ridiculous. Joe is asking, what's your favorite World War II aircraft?
Everybody says the P-51 Mustang, but it came at the very, very end of the war. I'd have to say the Bearcat.
That was a mean plane.
The Bearcat?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a big, huge radial motor on it. And and the P-47 Thunderbolt, I'd have to, and those two airplanes are, that have radial engines, and they're both beasts. I mean, they're big, big airplanes. But the P-47 was built by the Republic Iron Works, as they called it. The F-105 was built by Republic, and you could shoot at that thing all day long, put holes in it, it'd still come back. The A-10 is a Republic airplane. I've seen it with 100 some odd holes in the wings, one tail blown off, one engine blown up, and it still brought the pilot home. And they were able to fix it and fly it again. So World War II's favorite, P-47 and the F-6F Bearcat.
See, I love the F-4U Corsair. That was mine.
Yeah,
those weird-looking wings. Oh.
And it's a real bear trying to get up, into the cockpit and to taxi that airplane, because you have this big, huge motor in front of you, and to get up in the wing, it's not an easy airplane to get in and out of for the first time. I sat in the F-2G that is at the Museum of Flight Restoration Center. That's they only built 10 of them. I think there's only 2 complete airframes in existence. It has a 28-cylinder R-4360, so it has 4,360 cubic inches at about 3,500 horsepower with water injection and turbocharge.
I want to get back to UFOs here a little bit. And in regards to what we are seeing in the skies here that people are reporting, Jim, let's take the black triangles, for instance, because there's a lot of people out there who believe they are this mythical craft called the TR-3B, or there are people out there who believe they are of some sort of extraterrestrial descent. Where do you stand on this?
I say I haven't seen them. I haven't seen good video. I've seen some video of them. Some of the stuff that was released on the pyramids that were flying and the Tic Tacs were pretty interesting. There's way too many people have seen and described the TR-3 as a triangle with the lights where they are. So, based on the hundreds, if not thousands of reported sightings from various people, I got to believe it's real. I mean, if people are seeing it, it's up there. Now, one of the problems we have today with your sophisticated little drones, this had to be in the very early 90s. Michael Dornheim, who was one of the featured technical engineers at Aviation Week, a guy we call Zero, Jim Bakos, and a few other people, we were going to build a UFO, and it was going to be about 10 feet across we're going to make it out of mylar as far as the center bubble. That would be the lifting part that would fill with helium. And then we're going to put like 4 or 6 small little electric ducted fan motors on it and be able to fly it around. And we were going to take it out near Area 51 and do some photography with it. Unfortunately, Jim came home one day to find that his wife had emptied the house out. And she had been doing the books for his business, and he realized that she hadn't been paying the taxes or paying vendors for about a year. So he lost his business. So we never went forward with it. But now you look at the new technology. When I was at Sedona on the 4th, 5th, and 6th of June, a month and a half ago, I was there with the garage UFO guys and Joe and Ben, and I just absolutely adore those two guys. But they had they had their camera guy who also has a very high def drone. And I was driving my Corvette around the area, and I had the top off, and I just got fried. So I went back and forth about 5 or 6 times as he flew over me as I was coming into the area. So those type of things could confuse people if they were used for nefarious purposes. But they're real. I mean, people wouldn't be putting their reputation on the line, or potentially being ridiculed for saying, "Hey, I saw a flying saucer. I saw a UFO. I saw a UAP." It's now, and this is sort of the times, I guess, that if a UFO, I mean, the United States government says, yeah, UFOs are real. Here's some video of them. Only in the last few years, not going back to Roswell or not going back to the 1800s, when we had some real, some even more interesting stuff. They've acknowledged the fact that we don't know, and I really don't think the people that are commenting on them and that are part of the releasing of it, they probably don't know. But I have a feeling that people up the top of the food chain knows precisely what those things are and where they're from. And I have a feeling, and again, I may be wrong. It would be the first time. Just ask my ex-wives. But I think it's to the point now where nobody's going, "Oh my God," or "I'm terrified. Oh my God, we're being invaded by aliens from another world." I think possibly some of the reason why things have not been released over the decades or centuries, if you want to put it that way, is we may not be in charge of the dissemination of the information. But because so many people now have video cameras, high definition video cameras in their back pocket or their purse or wherever, or at the end of a stick, those things, you can't hide that anymore. So that's one of the reasons I think the federal government, and I'm really disappointed. I really thought the executive order that President Trump issued before he left office, that it required all federal agencies to release everything they had on UFOs. And they haven't. A couple of, 8 years, 10 years, 15 years of just primarily the Tic Tac and the triangles. So I think there's more stuff that needs to be released, but I don't think. Are you kidding me? The Jim Goodall? Who's that? Joe or Ben?
That's Ben from UFO Garage.
Hey, when am I going to get a snivlet of what you guys shot in Sedona?
Jim, I'm going to get you to hold on right there because we are going to go to break here at the top of the hour. We have James Goodall for another 30 minutes here on Spaced Out Radio. Then we're going to get to the Unbiased UFO Report, the News Wire, and the Thought of the Dave. Hour 3 is next. All right, Jim, I'm going to take a quick break here. I'll be right back. All right. See you, Jim. Hi, Ben. Hi, Ben. Hi, Ben. Oh, hold on, Jimmy. All right, now I got to get rid of this one. There we go. There you are.
There we go.
There we go. Night Gazer, how's it going? Nice to see you. Yep. Jim effing Goodall here tonight, everyone. Jim effing Goodall.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Hey, Super Gary, what's going on? How's your cape? By the way, Gary, great work today, buddy. Great work. We've got about just over 1 minute, boss.
Okay.
Yeah, Joshua S., good to see you. Justin S., what's going on? Yeah, if you're not signed up for UFO Garage, you're missing out.
They're great guys. They really are.
Mm-hmm.
And they're fun.
Very fun. And they
Yep.
produce a great show. I don't promote a lot of shows, but those two, Ben and Joe from UFO Garage, I love speaking about them because they deserve all the accolades that they get. Those young guys, they work hard. They have a lot of fun. They don't take themselves or the topics overly serious. You know, even though they're promoting a very serious show, can't say enough about them. Cannot say enough about them. We got about 10 seconds here, boss.
All right.
Would you like to connect with us? Head to spacedoutradio.com for all your latest show info. Now, back to Dave Scott and SOR.
Third and final hour of Spaced Out Radio is now underway. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. We really do appreciate earning your listening ears wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Want to say hello to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America and digitally on TalkStream Live, Revolution Radio, and KPNL. All of our archives are free by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club, Juxtapositive. Juxtapositive is better than juxtanegative, that is for sure, as the Clam sets a password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram, Spaced Out Radio Show. James Goodall is here for the final time we introduce him tonight. He is a legend in the field of aviation. Everybody loves him, everybody hates him, and all the women just swoon over him because that's the way he is. And I tell you, if you don't see him cruising along the highways of the southwestern United States at about 150 miles an hour in his Corvette, you're missing on out. James, welcome back.
Pleased to be here.
Always a pleasure to have you here.
Yes.
I want to ask you, out of all the sources that you have, and I know you are a believer in UFOs, you are a believer in the secrets of Area 51, you've known people who've worked there, from everybody from Bob Lazar all the way up to people whom we would never recognize their names. Are you 100% committed that the United States knows more about UFOs than what they are letting on to with the DNI report and all the other reports that have come out about this?
My statement is absolutely, positively yes. No question about it. I firmly believe that our government, of other people and for their people, supposedly, they have information on what's been overflying our airspace, overflying our nuclear weapons facilities, being chased by blackbirds and everything else. I think our government, in those deep, dark places that no one knows about, has all the information necessary and all the information it needs on who built those craft, who's operating them, and where they're coming from. To think that they wouldn't get too excited about unknown alien craft flying over some of our military bases and missile silos, if they thought it was the Russians or the Chinese or the short Nork in North Korea or even the DNC, I mean, I'm a firm believer that there are people and organizations within the federal government and within the Department of Defense, or at least in part of the spook agencies, are fully aware of what's flying out there, and they know where they're at. They know where they're coming, and they're probably in regular communication with our government in one form or another. Did that answer your question? What do I believe?
Yeah, I kind of figured you would have that answer, Jim. But what are the big secrets that the U.S. government is holding on to? What do they not want us to know? Because this opens up a lot of these conspiracy theory type questions, whether it's Eisenhower meeting with aliens back in the 1950s, whether it's Bob Lazar and the UFOs that he saw at FS4, whether it's Skinny Bob, whether it's J-Rod or other aliens walking around Area 51, it opens up the doors to all of these conspiracy theories to potentially being true.
Absolutely. I mean, when they made the announcement, when Tucker Carlson mentioned it, and a gentleman from the federal government, I think it was in the New York Times, that said some of the objects that are being seen are not from this earth. And I was talking to Doc Skinner, and he was talking with the guys in Hawaii, and matter of fact, they were talking. He was on the phone with them, and he's talking away, and I could hear, I don't know if it was Brett or Blake, said, there's a guy out there named Jim Goodall that I haven't been able to find where a way to get hold of him. He didn't look too hard, but and Doc said, well, he's only about 5 feet away from me. So he put me on the phone, and he said, do you think Lazar would respond? I said, yeah, I think so. So I said, would you call him up? And I said, sure. So I called him up. And his wife answered, and I said, yeah, and she was really happy to hear from me. I've known Bob going on 33 years. I knew him before he went to work out in the desert. And I did, Bob got on the phone. I said, well, you've been vindicated. And he said, yeah, when I first heard it, I got really excited about it, but I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop before I get too excited. So I think he's looking forward to more stuff being released. And it's a crying shame that they haven't fully acknowledged what he was working on. I mean, if it came from another world, you're not divulging classified information that our military has. I mean, it may be alien beings, but I think he was encouraged. He may be a little bit more encouraged as more stuff comes out. I hope to sit down with him face to face later on this summer, like I mentioned, and pick his brain.
Which conspiracy theories do you think are true out there that lead to UFO knowledge that the U.S. government probably does not want coming out?
Well, they have the ability to move from one end of the universe to the other, but I think it's possibly what their weapons capabilities are. But if they're not our terrestrial enemy, being the China, Russia, North Korea, Mexico, Canada, then I don't know what all this secrecy is about, unless our government and people within the UFO, the formal UFO community, I don't think they're in charge. I don't think they have the authority, if that's the right word, to divulge real specific information on unknown alien spacecraft. I think it would freak if all of a sudden they made the federal government were to announce that these are photos and interviews of aliens. This is their craft. They're from the other side of the universe, and they can come here in a blink of an eye because of their technology. I don't think we have the ability to release the information. I think it's being controlled under possibly very specific threats, whichever that may be. I don't know. I would love to be a little fly on the wall.
Let me ask you this: why continue, in your opinion, to hide Roswell?
Because once you let the genie out of the bottle, you can't put it back. And if we recovered injured and dead aliens, and we have them on ice somewhere, and maybe they've been autopsied, like the autopsy video from 20 years ago, 30 years ago. I think if all of a sudden they would legitimize everybody's feeling, what everybody thinks really what happened in Roswell. To me, that would be fantastic. But again, we may not be able and may not be in the position to release that information. And they're really, depending on where what kind of information you're trying to keep from the general public or the world in general. Take the Blackbird, for example, the CIA's version of the Blackbird. That wasn't acknowledged until 20 years after the program was retired. 20 years. It sat in the desert covered with spray lat at Air Force Plant 42 from 1968 on. It was there at Palmdale. Yet they were sitting vacant in the sun. First they were in hangars, but then they finally moved them all out. And that's when I saw 9 cocooned blackbirds, looking through looking over the fence at Site 2 at Palmdale at Air Force Plant 42. That was 1981. The program came to an end in 1968. So you have 70s and almost 20 years from the time the program started. So for them not to release information, that's par for the course.
Right. I like this question from Max here. Do you think ETs are asking our governments not to disclose until we hit a predetermined milestone?
I think Max has a good response. I think that is the situation we're in. The gentleman from Israel who said that we've been working very closely with
Haim Shed.
Yes. And he said, we are not ready either emotionally or technically to accept what's out there, to be able to accept the truth as it pertains to alien spacecraft from a different solar system and alien beings. I mentioned it before, that the glue that holds most of the world together is the firm believer in a supreme being, whether it be Jesus Christ, whether it be Mohammed, whether it be Buddha, Adam Smith for the Mormons and whatever. And if all of a sudden all these religious icons that we've built our life around and our world around, all of a sudden if the realization came that, well, these were really little gray men from Mars, I think people would go crazy. I don't think educated people, you and I, and most of the first world, or not most, there's a lot of idiots here, a good portion of the first world versus the third world or whatever, we can accept the fact that there are beings out there that are superior to us, technically, and maybe even physically. And I don't think a lot of the world is ready to accept that. And I would agree. And I believe that the gentleman from Israel, when he basically said the same thing, that we are not ready for disclosure. And I hope I live long enough to actually see something happen. And I have a feeling, I've felt this for the last couple of years now, that we're getting real close. We're getting real close to the poop hitting the fan as far as disclosure goes, and what the aliens have in store for us. Because if they can fly across the universe, not just the solar system, but the universe, then they have the ability and the power to do whatever they want with us. If they want, and Dr. Stephen Greer feels that, and I had a chance to meet him here back in April, I think it was. His firm belief is that if the aliens, and I believe there's multiple different species in different places, if they were hostile towards us, they would have eliminated us a long time ago. We're a beautiful planet, but if all of a sudden there were no humans left, it would be a better place. And I think that's one of Bill Gates' dreams too, is to reduce the population of the United States to
you never know.
500 million people. It's on YouTube.
Right.
I mean, my gosh.
Right now, he's got to figure out a good divorce lawyer.
Oh, and I don't think he had a prenup.
Probably not.
Yeah.
Probably not. James Goodall is our guest tonight on Spaced Out Radio. We got him till the bottom of the hour. When it comes to extraterrestrials, do you believe that we have bodies, or we are working with extraterrestrials right now at secret bases like Area 51?
Not at Area S4, yes. Possibly at Wright-Patterson, and possibly at Dugway and a few other places. Yes, absolutely. And I would put my reputation on it, saying that they're here, the creatures, the beings, and their hardware is here, and we have access to it. So yes, I haven't. I think I was married to one, but I've never met an alien. I was out of Tippecanoe Valley, which is due east of Area 51. I'm near the black mailbox. This is 1993. It was just a sliver of a moon, and as it went behind the Papoose Range, I'm standing out there, and it's so dark I can't see my feet because my eyes hadn't adjusted. And I said, "Okay, I'm going like this. And if you could read my mind, through telepathy, whatever, I want to be abducted, but I want to be able to bring my camera." And I sat there probably a good hour and a half, watching the sky for one, and hoping I would see something. And people said they've seen stuff in Tippecanoe Valley, and if they're flying out of S4 or they're flying out of Area 51 or anywhere in the Nevada desert, there should be some evidence of them flying at night. And that's what I was hoping for. So nothing happened to it. I'm disappointed because I really, really want to see one. I believe I'm a firm believer in they're real. I'm a firm believer that they're here. And I would like to have a first-person interview with one of them, or multiple ones.
Come meet Samantha Mowat when you come up here.
Pardon?
When you finally come up to British Columbia next year for the Abbotsford Air Show in 2022, you're going to come up to my place, and I'll introduce you to Samantha Mowat.
Okay, this sounds good.
She'll get you some aliens.
I would love it. Again, if they could read my mind, they would have abducted me a long time ago. And for all I know, they have. Because because once I go to sleep, I'm like a rock. I don't hear anything. The wife woke me up in the middle of the night here earlier this week and said, "Did you hear all that thunder?" "What thunder?" "Oh, as you know, I'm also hard of hearing, so I always sleep in my good ear. But I'm looking forward to it. And again, Max, yes, I believe that we've not been asked. I believe we've been told. That is my feeling. 5 years in my face, close enough to touch encounters. Well, I have a friend of mine who's a contractor for NSA. And when they made the announcement, Tucker Carlson and the New York Times said that we have things that are not made of this earth. I sent her an email. I said, "Hey, you believe in UFOs?" And she said, "Why? Did you see one?" I said, "No, but they're talking about it on the news." And all she says, "I can't comment on this platform electronically, but they're here." I said, "Do you want to expand upon that?" And the typical answer is, "No." But she told me, she said, "They're here." And I'm hoping I could track her down someplace where I can get to. She's all over the world. And I want to sit down with her and pick her brain. If she will allow me to do that. Now, and she may not say anything until she retires, which I don't think is that far out. So we'll find out. And if I get a chance to interview her and talk with her face to face, it will be interesting.
We've only got about 2 minutes left with you tonight. Flown on by once again, Uncle Jimbo.
It's my pleasure. I thoroughly enjoy. I always enjoy coming on your show.
Thank you.
You have a great voice. You're a good guy.
It's a face for radio, my friend.
Yeah. Or the bottom of a toilet seat. Yeah.
One of the two. Either work for me. I'm okay.
Yeah. So it's been fun, and again, I'm absolutely amazed where the time just goes poof.
Tell our audience what you're working on right now.
I'm my 75 years of Skunk Works came out in June, and I'm working on I call it Admiral Hiram Rickover's dream, a nuclear navy, and I'm going to do a book covering all 254 plus nuclear powered submarines that have been built for the United States Navy, starting with the Nautilus, going all through all the fast attacks, going in the SSBNs, which is your ballistic missile subs. And they had the 41 for Freedom, and then they have 18 of the Ohio boats, and then the new Columbia class. And I'm working on it, but I had a brain fart yesterday or day before yesterday. I inadvertently misplaced or erased a file folder with 1,200 photos in it. I have to resurrect it all. And these are all, I had spent multiple hours on Photoshop cleaning them up, leveling them, cropping them. So everything was, perfect for the book. And all of a sudden, poof, they disappear.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, my friend, anytime you want to come on the show, you are always more than welcome to just hit me up and say, "Hey, I want to come on," and we'll get you a date. Not a problem for that, my friend, because you always deserve it. You really do. James Goodall's books can be found at any major bookstore in North America, and of course online at all online retailers. Go get the hard copy, though. They always smell so much better when you get them from a bookstore. That is for sure. Jim Goodall, everyone. Coming up next, we have the Unbiased UFO Report. We have the Newswire and the Thought of the Day. Stay tuned. Spaced Out Radio continues right after this. Jim fucking Goodall, right there.
As usual, it was fun. It it was a fun.
Oh
fun
God, I
evening.
love it when you're on. Love it when you're on.
Well, I enjoy being on. I really do. You just you're one of the good guys.
Thank you, sir.
In a industry that has a number of genuine crazies.
Well, I appreciate that, and I can't do it without getting to know people like you and earning that trust and respect. So thank you. That means the world to me.
Well, I would walk to Canada if they'd let me through the border, and that's how much I enjoy. I just enjoy having a conversation with you.
Yeah.
And it's been that way since the first time we met.
Absolutely. Well, you know what? We're going to do it again. I'll call you soon.
All right. You have a good one.
We'll catch up, boss.
All right. You take care.
You take care. Bye-bye.
Will do. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Love that man. Love that man. Jim Goodall, everyone. When sure some of his stuff may sound a little bit outlandish, but you know what? You got to realize a guy like Jim over the years has literally been talking to generals of all stars. He's been talking to everyone in there who is in the know, from Ben Rich to everybody, and friggin' amazing. Absolutely amazing. And we'll bring him back soon for you guys. Mark, you could email Melinda Leslie on that one. I didn't want to touch that question tonight because it's still quite fresh and everything like that. So I know what you're talking about. Chad, thank you so much for the super chat. Thank you, Gorgeous Jules. Cat Chaser for the hat trick. Apollo a couple of times. Chad, you've got a couple of times in here tonight, too. I appreciate that. Alicia, Elaine, Carl times 2, Amy, Dirty Filth, Michael, and Tim, and Kyle, Simon, Andrew, Jeremy. You guys are amazing. Your support is phenomenal. Mr. Businessman, how you doing? Welcome to the show. And thank you guys so much for your support with the super chats. I really do appreciate that. And John Hudson is here. Look how good he's looking tonight. Can't hear you, buddy.
Oh, sorry. I'm here, buddy.
All right.
Man, I love listening to Jim talk.
Oh, me too.
You know, it's kind of, creepy, just a funny coincidence is that, like I said to you before, it turns out Jim and I grew up in the same town in Mountain View, and so we have a lot of the same hangouts. And now he's in Tucson, which, as a side note, is where I was born.
Oh, wow.
So just one of those funny...
A lot of synchronicities there.
Yeah, funny little things that work out, A
lot of synchronicities there. Yeah, that's awesome, man.
Yeah, it's funny because I don't remember it. The only time I've ever been to Tucson was I had to go out to a place called Fort Huachuca, which I don't recommend anyone ever visit. It's in the middle of bloody nowhere. But you got to fly into Tucson to drive out to Fort Huachuca. And that's actually my only memory of ever being there because my parents left when I was like a year and a half. I have no memory of it.
Wow. I would love to get it. See, you know what? A lot of people love flying places because obviously you get there much faster. I love flying too. But I can't wait for the days when I can get a motorhome and just start traveling and visit all of these small little places.
Or have you done it by train? Train's another great way to do it. I mean, it's amazing some of the tracks. I mean, you take the Southwest track and you go right through Santa Fe. You go right through all these old places.
Right.
I mean, it's beautiful.
Right. Thank you, Jeremy, for the super chat. Really appreciate that. Look at Beverly here, eh? John M. effing Hudson in the house.
That's awesome because actually my middle initial is M, so that's actually quite suiting.
PBR, are you drinking the Aqua Velva again? And, what do you want me to do, PBR? Are we getting cranky again? All right. we talked about Bob Lazar twice tonight. You missed the first one. You didn't hit the second. Okay? I'm not going to all of a sudden stop. Well, hold on. We got to grill you here. Got to grill you. PBR wants me to grill you. It's not our type of show, man.
Especially because Jim's been always...
Rounded third. We're heading for home tonight on Spaced Out Radio. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. Really do appreciate earning your listening ears wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Want to remind you that if you've missed most of this show or others, check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram, Spaced Out Radio Show. It's time for the Unbiased UFO Report. Yes, this is where we are joined by our resident UFO researcher, John Hudson, to come on in and discuss everything that is going on in the UFO world. And one of the things that I want to get to right off the bat, Daniel Sheehan making a little bit of news here once again, John, talking about a Mach 12 aircraft.
Yeah, so this is one of those things that if you don't listen to all of his interviews very carefully, he loves to drop these little nuggets that are really quite shocking if you know the history. And one of them is that he was temporarily given a Q clearance by a judge once, which is completely unheard of in my knowledge. But the bigger one is this Mach 12 plane, and it was during one of his times he came on with. I believe it was Grant Cameron, or I think it's actually under Gary Voorhees' channel where they did a panel. And he came on and he was talking about how he was learning about different programs, partly because he wanted to find out whether any of them came close to any of the capabilities we were seeing in the skies. And one of the things he claimed point blank that he was briefed on was a crazy Mach 12 plane. And the thing I found interesting about this is that Mr. Sheehan's not a technical man. And so when he gives technical details, it's usually because he's repeating what he heard. And what he specifically said was that plane reached supersonic speeds, and then it releases a rare gas into the outside air of the plane, which is then detonated by the shock waves that are shaped specifically to then propel that plane to Mach 12. And that as a result of being able to fly Mach 12, it can basically lay all of its nuclear arsenal across the surface level of a country like Russia in about 2 minutes.
Wow.
By my calculations, it can be anywhere in the world. It can leave the United States, be anywhere in the world within 90 minutes.
90
and he claims that he saw pictures of the plane and he was briefed on the plane by someone official. Blew my mind.
Where do you think this aircraft is based out of?
Oh, I never understand why people have trouble guessing on that. Like, the United States has, I think we have more bases outside of the U.S. than most other countries have bases inside their own countries. We have bases everywhere. I mean, just Diego Garcia alone, all the DOE sites where they bury all the nuclear waste. You could stick a whole fleet of planes in those underground areas. There's so many places you could hide these planes, especially if it can go Mach 12, so it doesn't care. You don't care where it launches from. It could be launching from anywhere and still get to its target within 90 minutes.
I'm just trying to figure out exactly what a couple of our listeners have said in the chat room. How does anybody survive flying at Mach 12?
Well, what's interesting is what you would need an inertial mass reduction device, which, as a side note, is exactly one of Pais's patents that everyone likes to poke at. As a side note to our previous conversation with Jim, another one of Pais's patents is on a compact fusion reactor, which is an improvement on Lockheed's design, which has gotten all sorts of positive feedback and accolades. And that patent is very well respected, and I believe works into the program that Jim was talking about.
Incredible. Nothing to do with the Aurora, a completely different new aircraft.
Well, this is the question, and that's the other thing that one of these days I'm going to ask Jim about, because an MOD release was given a couple months ago where they showed pictures of that triangle craft, the same one that Nick Pope claimed he had a poster of in his office that disappeared. And in the document that surfaced, they specifically mentioned the Aurora program as being one of the projects that is marked for non-conversation, non-dissemination, repeating within their world. I forget they have a technical term for it. It's something, I think, Delta 12 or something like that. I forget the exact term. It's in the document I sent you. And they basically said point blank that there is a plane called Aurora that is marked, U.S. top secret, that no one's allowed to talk about. And in that same folder was a photocopy of that triangle craft that was on Nick Pope's wall. So that implies that plane is Aurora. Now, we didn't see the plane that Danny Sheehan saw, but he did say it didn't look like a plane. It looked very, very weird. And so it's possible that the plane Danny Sheehan was talking about and the Aurora are the same thing, because it is somewhat unlikely that you would have two completely different Mach 12 programs.
Unbelievable. I mean, could you imagine, and I want to believe this so bad, John, but could you imagine if this was 100% true, that it was out there in the public? Wow. I mean,
I'll be honest with you. I personally, I don't believe that I believe what Danny Sheehan said, because my understanding is that he received that information in a somewhat, he didn't say this specifically, but the way he told the story, I got the impression he got this information in the pursuit of his job, like in a case he was working on. And so, it was offered to him. It wasn't something he poked at. It was said, oh, well, this is one thing we have, we can share with you, right? And so is it possible that they were lying to him? Sure, absolutely, right? But those are some weird specific details to give a lawyer, right? Releasing a rare gas into a formed shockwave. I mean, how does a plane even survive the detonation of the gas, let alone the pilot inside? And why even have a pilot? You couldn't see anything anyway. Going Mach 12, you're not going to be able to see anything. The world's going to be going by so fast that, I mean, you'll be like that Quicksilver character. I mean, it would be insane.
I don't even know how to think about that. Let's move on to our next topic here tonight on the Unbiased UFO Report. J.J. Abrams, who's known for Star Trek and Star Wars 7 and 9, has got a brand new 4-part UFO show on Showtime. Tell us about it.
Yeah, so a couple of us heard rumors about this, so it wasn't a total shock, but the fact that it's so far along at least was shocking to me. There's a trailer out that you can watch, and I believe, I don't remember off the top of my head exactly when they said it's going to be released, but it's going to be soon, and essentially it's going to be on Showtime only, so it is part of his contract that he has with I think it was Warner was who he signed the contract with. Essentially it's going to be a 4-part. And what's interesting is that his work is more of a standard documentary, whereas the other big project that HBO is doing, that is going to be a fictionalization of the story, where they're going to tell the story of Christopher Mellon, Louis Elizondo, Leslie Keane, probably Ralph Blumenthal, a couple others, and they're going to actually stitch it together as a story and try to tell the story of what happened. But our understanding is that they're going to use actors and it's going to be fictionalized. Whereas what Abrams is doing is more of a classical documentary, but done with his level of gravitas, his level of finesse.
I did see one of the previews, and it involved Kevin Day. and Gary Voorhees, who
Yep.
Kevin Day
It looked
and
good.
Gary Voorhees were both on the USS Nimitz back in 2004, and it was Kevin Day who actually called on the jet fighter pilots like Alex Dietrich and David Fravor to go intercept the Tic Tac aircraft. And Kevin is still a little messed up over that, and I don't say that to be, trite about him or anything like that, but this has affected him big time.
No, it's an important thing to point out because it has, and he handles it very well, and he has nothing to be ashamed of. What he went through, especially from where he came from, would actually do much worse to most people than what it's done to him. But it's important to point out what it has done to him because it helps all of us empathize with other experiencers.
So what do we expect from this? Are we going to see the same talking heads, saying a bunch of nothing? Because usually what happens when somebody steps into the UFO world, they don't bring in a lot of new voices or new faces. They always bring in the same faces every time, whether it's Nick Pope or Richard Dolan, and nothing against those people, but, there's not a lot of fresh blood in there.
Yep. No. And I think there's a good chance that the way Abrams looks at it is that he's breaking that mold by essentially bringing in Kevin Day and Voorhees and others who are not classically major players in the UFO community. I don't know. I mean, my challenge with it is it even like, let's say he got some original footage, right? I mean, he's got connections. I mean, who knows, right? So let's say he gets some original footage and he shows it. Who's going to believe it? This guy made Star Wars and he made Star Trek, right? I mean, it's like this guy's good at creating fantasy on the screen. So I really don't know if it's going to have the same kind of weight that it would by someone else. So I think ultimately it's going to be a very pretty package. It's going to be it's going to be the BMW, the Mercedes class product for people that want to consume what we've been consuming for the last 5 years, but consume it in a very nice, very clean, very pretty package, which is important for a certain part of the market.
Right. And, of course, I'm assuming we're going to be able to see that Luis Elizondo, Chris Mellon, and Leslie Keane are going to be working on something as well.
Well, my understanding is that they are being sourced for the HBO project. But I also think it's a really important thing to note that HBO announced their project a couple months ago, and now Showtime's announcing theirs. What this says to me is UFOs have become a hot enough commodity that the studios are now feeling pressure to have their own projects, and that's a statement about how things are progressing in a big way.
No, I think that's very good. And to kick off the week, we have a big press conference that's going to be happening by a multi-million-dollar program to search for alien techno-signatures and biosignatures. What's this all about?
Yeah, so this one caught me off guard, and although I think it was supposed to, and the kind of money they're talking about, I have to guess that that famous Russian individual Yuri, I apologize, I can't remember Yuri's last name, but he's the one that was helping funding the Breakthrough Project. Where they were sending the little CubeSats out. He has a huge passion for tech. I mean, for alien type off-world stuff. And so my guess is that he's involved, though I don't know that for sure. But basically, it's not like an award thing. It's not like a contest. It's basically the announcement of a very, very large funding engine for different research groups who are looking specifically for techno-signatures and biosignatures, looking for proof of alien life.
Awesome. John, we will talk to you next time on the Unbiased UFO Report. Another great set of stories that you've got for us, keeping us all up to date here on Spaced Out Radio and the latest UFO news. You're hitting home runs here, my friend. Keep it on up.
Thank you, sir. You have a good weekend.
All right, let's get to Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. The news is always changing, which is why we bring you the SOR News Wire at the back end of every show, where we get to the weird, the wacky, and sometimes the disappointing, and we get to be disappointed at Jeff Bezos. Why? Despite flying to the edge of space, Amazon founder Jeff Bezos does not qualify for his astronaut wings after the U.S. Federal Aviation Authority tightened its rules. Bezos and the crew of Blue Origin took off from their base at Van Horn, Texas at 9:12 a.m. Eastern this past Tuesday, and the 52nd anniversary of the moon landing. They ascended for 4 minutes before floating autonomously on New Shepard rocket booster, separated, leaving them floating in zero gravity for 4 minutes. It is the autonomous portion of the space flight that will see Bezos, his brother Mark, Wally Funk, and Oliver Damon miss out on their FAA-approved wings. In order to qualify, they have to make a contribution to the flight and to human space flight safety while traveling beyond the 50-mile mark defined by the FAA. It is possible Wally Funk may be given honorary astronaut wings by the FAA for demonstrating an extraordinary contribution to human spaceflight. Even if Bezos doesn't get his wings, it doesn't take away from them going into space, as Blue Origin's New Shepard easily passed the 50-mile mark. This made Bezos is the richest man to go into space. Wally Funk is the oldest, and Oliver Damon the youngest at just 18 years old. So far, only Virgin Galactic pilots flying the space plane from the cockpit and Chief Astronaut Bess Moses, who flew solo in the cabin on a test flight, have been awarded the new commercial FAA astronaut wings. Nobody from Blue Origin qualified, with Blue Origin New Shepard spacecraft controlled entirely from the ground with no input from the crew on board. The FAA criteria was not met. This could put the entire space tourism industry in doubt, experts predict, as passengers on the various spacecraft wouldn't get their wings. It is possible a new category of space tourist or commercial astronaut is created to describe those who go into space purely as a passenger rather than crew or pilot. So in other words, you could spend $25 million to go up in space, and all you're going to get is the lousy t-shirt. Here's one locally. A wildfire attack crew looking for a newly started forest fire in Garibaldi Provincial Park, just north of Vancouver, didn't find a fire. Instead, they found a man who had been missing in the rugged backcountry for a couple of weeks. Squamish RCMP say the hiker missing in the park for 2 weeks was found safe. 33-year-old Daniel Ring they started searching for him on July 9th. Brian Zandberg, an information assistant with BC Wildlife Services and Coastal Fire Center, said a 3-person crew and a helicopter pilot were on their way to investigate a report of a fire when they spotted the man. They saw somebody down on the ground, arms waving and signaling for help. The area where Ring was spotted is very remote. I can only imagine being lost for 2 weeks. I look at the map, and he was in Elfin Lakes, where they found him. It's quite a distance. Police say Ring had been dropped off in the park on July 7th for a solo trek and was reported overdue when he failed to meet up his plan. The statement from RCMP say there was a literal cheer in the detachment when members of the Coast Fire reported they had found the man. Corporal Angela Kermer did not provide an update on his condition, but police said they have connected him with his family. That's kind of cool. And let's see if we can sneak one or two more in here. I think we can. And let's go here. The Great Barrier Reef will not be placed on the list of World Heritage Sites in danger after a global lobbying effort from Australia against the proposed listing. The 21-country World Heritage Committee met and ignored a scientific assessment from the UN Science and Cultural Organization, UNESCO, that the reef was clearly in danger from climate change and so should be placed on the list. UNESCO will instead be asked to carry out a mission to the 2,300-kilometer reef in the coming months, and Australia will need to send progress reports to the agency by February 22nd in order to determine how the reef is doing at that time. And finally tonight, which one should we go to? Let's go to this one. Ernest Hemingway lookalikes are gathering in Florida to celebrate the life of the famed author and crown a champion impersonator. The Key West Hemingway Days kicked off with multiple bearded men wandering the streets in their apparel that most resembles the attire favored by the Old Man and the Sea author. The festival is scheduled to last through Sunday, with the top impersonator being crowned Saturday night at the Ernest Hemingway Lookalike Contest at Sloppy Joe's Bar, which was a favorite hangout of Hemingway during his time in Key West. Thought of the Dave happens every night at this time, where we ask a question on our Facebook and Twitter pages, then read your responses on the air because we love the audience participation around here. Today's Thought of the Dave is as followed. What's your opinion on who made the Tic Tac UAP? Eric, not terrestrial, either aliens or interdimensional. Davey, maybe the Tic Tac wasn't made, perhaps it was born, or maybe it was manifested. Melinda, not us, something much more advanced. Catherine, oh, the operator just got to move the mouse off the screen. Bobby, it's either a publicity stunt by the Ferrero corporations or it's the one-eyed, one-horned flying purple people eaters. Ray, not from our timeline, possibly AI controlled. Craig, Michael Turber, who then flew into North Korea as a show of force, or he lied about it. Arlie, government, who knows really? Bob, advanced AI doing surveillance for NHI. Tim, not us, and if we did, the government has some explaining to do. Thank you to everybody participating in the Thought of the Dave on Facebook and Twitter. Thanks to Captain Shirk for the news, John Hudson for the unbiased UFO report, and James Goodall for a great interview tonight. We got Mr. Ron Bumblefoot Thal rocking in the background with Little Brother is Watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio, rocking us in and out of every single show. Get your horns up for the guitar god himself. Special thanks to everybody listening in at home, at work, in your cars, wherever you may be. Thank you to everyone tuning us on YouTube, LGAB, Revolution Radio, Twitch, Spreaker, Facebook, the Space Travelers Club, and all those paying attention on Twitter tonight. Remember, this show is copyright by Spaced Out Radio and SOR Media Ventures Limited. Thank you so much for choosing to share your evening with us, because together, my friends, say it with me, we're watching. We own the night. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. We need you to take us home. Yes, the Woo train has docked for the night, but soon, my friends, we shall ride again. Your seats are always available. Your tickets never expire. And if you want to bring a friend, we've got room for them too. Good night.